Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for gracing us and joining us this morning. Today's class is dedicated by our dear friends, Dr. Michael and Liz Michelle, in loving memory of Rebbetzin Sarah Michelle, Sarah Bas Reb Yechiel Mechel, in tribute to her 14th yahrzeit on the 23rd day of Cheshvan. Rebbetzin Michelle was one of the pioneers and builders of the Muncie community, together with her esteemed husband, Tehei Nishmas Tzrura, B'tzar HaChayim, and may she remain an eternal source of inspiration, love, empowerment, blessing for the whole Michelle family, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and children, of course, La'arichis Yamim V'Shanim Tovos. And thank you very, very much. Today's class is also dedicated by the Kagarlitsky family, La'elu Nishmas, and in loving memory of Reb Moshe ben Shmuel, who passed away a few days ago on the 11th day of Mar Cheshvan, 5786, Tehei Nishmas Tzrura, B'tzar HaChayim, and may his soul always be present with you and be an eternal source of inspiration and love. And B'karev, we should be Zoichet to a Kitzav V'rananu Sheikh Ne'afar V'heim B'seicham Amen Kein Yehi Ratzain. We have one source sheet today, and we're going to be addressing the internal conflict that exists in so many of our lives. It's part of the human fabric, human nature, and the way it's reflected in the genesis of our history, which opens up the story in Parsha's Toldos. Let's remember the context. Yitzchak marries Rivka, but as the Torah says in the beginning of Toldos, Rivka could not have children. And Yitzchak davens because Rivka is an akara, she's barren. And ultimately, Rivka, Baruch Hashem, becomes pregnant. What happens next, though, the Torah describes seems like a very deep internal struggle. And the struggle is described this way. It's the first source sheet, Toldos Perek Chav Hei Pasuk Chav Beis. That's Genesis chapter 25, verse 22. Vayisroitzatzu habonim bekirba. Vatoimer im kein lama ze anoichi. Vatelech lidroish es Hashem. The translation of this is, the children struggled in her womb. Yisroitzatzu is a very unique term, and it represents some conflict, some war, some very deep agitation, something very uncomfortable, unsettling. And she says, if so, lama ze anoichi. Literally it means, why am I? They usually translated, why do I exist? The literal meaning is lama, why, ze, this, anoichi, am I? Why am I? Why do I exist? Why am I here? And she goes to search, lidrosh is to search, to inquire, to investigate from Hashem. Vayomer Hashem la. Hashem responds to her, and he says, Shnei goyim bevitnech. There are two nations in your womb. Ushnei le'umim mimei ayich yiparedu. And two separate peoples shall separate from your internal body, from your insides. Mimei ayich is from your innards, from your insides. Ula'oim ela'oim yematz. And one people shall gain strength from the other, meaning one shall be mightier than the other. There will be there's a conflict over there. One becomes stronger from the defeat of the other, meaning they're not on equal terms. One becomes stronger from overpowering the other, because if not, the other one overpowers it. So there's a struggle between them. V'rav yavet sayer, and the older shall serve the younger. That's the message that Hashem gives to Rivka, which apparently calms her down, because it answered the question, why am I? And then the Torah continues. It comes the time to give birth, and there are twins, and they emerge. The first one who emerges is a hairy boy, looks like he's pretty mature and developed, and they call him Eisav, which means done, complete. Amacher, made, asu from the word masa. And the second one after him is not as red, is more pale, and his name is Yaakov, as he's holding on to the heel of his brother. From a biological point of view, you could say, these were identical twins, sharing the same placenta, fighting over the same nutrients. One got more blood and was really red, and one had less blood, Yaakov, and therefore is more pale. That's on the most basic level. When we look at this story, obviously it's unique because many people are born in Chumash, but this description of the pregnancy and the crisis it created for the mother is very unique. We don't see it in previous stories or in subsequent stories. So this needs to be studied. Rivka is experiencing agitation. Something is bothering her. This is not an easy pregnancy. But her question is a unique question. Her question is not, why am I in pain? Why am I suffering? Is there anything I can do? Any vitamins I can take? Are there certain exercises that can help me? Maybe I can get some of Gitti Klein's soup or healthy food so that I should be able to deal with this better. Maybe I need something to give strength and stamina to my energy. Rather, her question is very existential. Why am I? Whoa, that's a big one. From the agitation she's experiencing, she's now questioning her very existence, her very identity. This means this was more than physical pain, or even more than just an emotional pain. There was something here that really got to her to the point of saying, Lama za'anaychi, why am I? It's almost like my whole existence, my anaychi, my sense of I, is put into question. And when the sense of I is put into question, we all understand that's a serious condition. Because everybody has questions, and everybody has to deal, as they say, with their own pekel, with different baggage and luggage. But this question is, why anaychi? Why am I? Something in the I is now with a question mark instead of an exclamation point. Lama ze anaychi. And as a result of that, she's not asking advice from anybody. She needs the creator of the universe. Vatelech lidrosh. Lidrosh is also an interesting word. It's not just a question. Lish'oil is a question. Lidrosh comes from the word doiresh, which is a deep, like drasha, is an investigation. Drisha v'chakira. It's a deep, deep scrutiny and analysis. She's going to acquire. The pasuk laments, Tzion ein doiresh la. The Navi says, Tzion doesn't have anyone doirish, nobody thinking about it, caring for it, investigating about it. Miklal de Bayidrisha Chazal say, from here you learn that Tzion deserves to be investigated and thought about and reflected and pondered about, reckoned with and pondered about. So Vatelech Lidroish es Hashem. She's really searching, she's searching. And Hashem gives her a message. And what's the message? The message is, it's not so simple. You have actually two nations inside this womb. It's a pretty intense story inside of you. There's a lot going on. It's going to be more than a Shalom Zachar, Vachnacht, Absharnish, Bar Mitzvah, send them off to Eretz Yisrael, give me a good shidduch, invite me for the Einikels Bar Mitzvah, I'll pay 40%. Just give me Nachas reports. It's going to be much more complex than this. Two nations are inside of you. Of course there's a struggle. Two nations are going to depart from you. One is going to be mightier than the other, and they're going to be struggling. The greater is going to serve the younger. So this is what Rivka hears. Now, how did this answer her question? She asked, Lama ze anaychi. It's not so clear. Something inside perturbed her so deeply to question herself, and somehow this answered her question. If we look at it from a physical level, she was very agitated from the pregnancy. What does it help? The fact that there are two nations. Okay, it didn't stop. The problems didn't stop, but somehow it seems like she was comforted. This brought her comfort. If it was a spiritual question or an emotional question or a psychological question, Lama za'anaychi, how did this answer? Wow, so now the problem is even bigger than I thought. I thought it was just a kid, in a bad mood in the womb or whatever. Now I realize there's two complete nations fighting over each other. Did this really take away the question of Lama za'anaychi? So commentators over the generations, beginning with Rashi right away, and all of the other Mefarshim commentators, have interpreted this pasuk in so many different ways. There's the Pshat and Remez, Rush, Side, because it obviously represents something very profound and nuanced, and it's the beginning of a whole journey that would continue over the next few portions between Yaakov and Eisav and their relationship, and the relationship with their mother and with their father, etc. Let's see a very fascinating interpretation that was given by the Noam Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech is a very famous Hasidic work that was authored by the Rabbi Elimelech, the Rebbe Melech as he's known, who lived in Lezhensk, which is in Poland. It's southeastern Poland. Many people till today go to pray at his resting place. I also had the merit of being there in Lezhensk in Poland, southeast Poland. It's a small town. There's around 14,000 people, I think, who live there today. But they have there now, food and Tanya and a lot of things happening in Lezhensk. A lot of people go there today. Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk was one of the prime and great students of the holy Maggid of Mezrich. The Maggid of Mezrich succeeded the Baal Shem Tov, and he had many of the great students. One of them was Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, together with his brother, Reb Zusha of Anipoli. These were two brothers, the Rebbe Reb Melech and the Rebbe Reb Zusha. Reb Zusha settled in Anipoli in Ukraine, where he's buried together with the Maggid, and Rabbi Elimelech was in Lizhensk, Poland, and some of the greatest Polish tzaddikim and masters were the students of Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, and he has a work, it's called Noyam Elimelech. Over there, on this pasuk, he has a very, very insightful, and I would say marvelous interpretation, with very deep relevance to our lives today. Let's see inside. This is the second source. Noyam Elimelech Parsha Toldos. His words are a little bit cryptic and mystical and short, so you have to be able to decipher them, but Be'ezer Hashem will try to decipher. And this is what he says. That this crisis was not just a physical issue. Her pregnancy was very tumultuous, because if that was the issue, Hashem's response wouldn't help. Okay, so now there's two people in me, but I'm suffering, I need help. And that's why her question is not only, how do I physically assuage, how do I physically alleviate pain? But it's a question of who am I and why am I? So this is what he explains. So both from the question and from Hashem's answer, we see that it's more than just a difficult pregnancy, which is not a small thing, and I'm not going to stand here and talk about that to this crowd, but that itself is worthy of attention. Rather here, it's one notch even higher. Rivka knew, she knew it in her bones, intuitively, and she knew it in her genes, as we say, and with her wisdom, that her children one day will be the receptacles of the sacred Torah, the divine blueprint for life. Ubiraisa, suddenly she sees, and this is the famous medrash on this pasuk, and Rashi quotes it, that the struggle was essentially a spiritual one. Yaakov hayem mefarchis lotzes, ubepesach avodah Eisav mefarchis lochitz. Is Kamosha Darshan Chazal. Our sages famously say in Medrash, and this is how Rashi interprets the pasuk in order to make sense of the struggle, that every time Rivka would pass centers of spiritual worship of Hashem, what we call a Beis HaKnesses, it's not like there were shuls at the time and yeshivas at the time, it was a different environment obviously, but it means places where they studied divine wisdom, they studied monotheism, it was places that were centered around emunah and a spiritual relationship with God. There was this child kicking and getting excited, almost trying to come out. That was Yaakov. But then when she would pass centers of paganism and idolatry, ashrams or monasteries where they practiced all of the pagan idolatry at the time, which was very popular, this other child was kicking. Now she doesn't yet know that she has twins, but there's kicking both when she's passing by places of holiness and when she's passing by places of idolatry. She does not know that there are two fetuses. There are two children in her womb. She thinks there's one child. Ooh, this means that this child is really, really split. There's one fetus, and every time she passes places of holiness, this child is excited. Every time she passes places of idolatry, this child is enthralled and excited. What does this mean? She doesn't know that there's two. She thinks it's one. That means there is a very deep crisis already in his genes, or her genes. In this child, in this fetus, there's a real, what you might call a split, a dichotomy. This person is dichotomized, torn between two, as they would say in Yiddish, the word Weltanschauung, two world perspectives, two completely different lives that both speak to it and attract it. And this caused her a lot of pain. She said, Im Kain, if so, first of all, it's the magnitude of suffering of this child. What this child is going through. So split, so torn, so dichotomized. Wow. It means that this person will not have a moment of peace or even know who they are. They're completely conflicted. They don't even know who they are. Their essence, their core is conflicted. This pains a mother very, very deeply. But there's even something deeper. If this is my child, and therefore this child, who will ultimately be the father of the nation that will receive the Torah, and this person is completely mixed. It's a taruvas. Taruvas is like a cholent, a mixture of toiv, of good, and rav, negativity, of toxicity. Lama ze anoichi. Why is this anoichi? It's not just a question on herself. Lama li kabbalas haTorah shepasach ba'anoichi Hashem. What do I need? The anoichi of Hashem Elokecha, which is the way The Aseres HaDibros, when the Jews receive the Torah, what is the opening word? Anoichi. This Anoichi becomes the I, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. Lama za Anoichi. Why do I even want this Anoichi? How can I even deal with Anoichi? What's the problem? Because the definition of Torah is purity, truth, authenticity. It needs to be received with absolute holiness and sensitivity, without any mixture of negativity, of poison. Lama za Anoichi. If this child is so conflicted, I don't even know who it is. Why is this? I don't even see this happening. Wow, so this is a very deep question a very deep crisis she's having. I'm giving birth to a child who is confused, it seems, at his core. There is ambivalence, there is a split, there is a dichotomy in the very essence of this child. One day azay. When we pass here, he's excited. When we pass opposite places, he's excited. Is there a spine? Is there an identity? Is there an essence? Do you know who you are? Do you have conviction? Is there any clarity in your life? This is what a tumultuous life. What a painful existence. An agitated existence. In many ways, a torturous existence. Being thrown around literally like a ping pong ball from this side to this side to this side, and it's constant. Lama za Anoichi. How is this child even be able to receive the Anoichi Hashem Elokecha? So what does she do? Vatelech lidreshes Hashem. She goes to find lidreshes when you want to look for something. Right? It says by Hashavas Aveda, you should hold that which you lost ad roish achicha oisai, until your brother searches for it. If I find a lost object, I take it home. It's called Hashavas Aveda, and then who do I give it to? The person who lost it needs to look for it, search for it, and they have to give me the simanim, the signs, so that I know that they are the rightful owner. So lidrosh is, she needs to go seek, looking for something. What is she looking for? So the Noam Elimelech says something fascinating. She wasn't looking for an answer. She realized that she needs to go find God. Very, very different than one would interpret it. She realizes there's such an issue going on here. And the first person she has to look at is who? Herself. The Eisav, the Gemara says at the end of Tractate Sukkah, Shuta di Yenuka, Oida Abba, Oida Ima. When you hear a little child talking, either ezak from the tate, the ezak from the mama, which in English means either we're hearing echoes of what tati is about, or we're hearing echoes of what mommy is about. At this point, a child is completely subsumed, so to speak, or consumed, or molded and crafted by the energy and the ambiance of the home. So the Gemara says, Shuta. Shuta means the conversations of Yenuka. Yenuka is a little child. Yenuka comes from the word yoinik, like nursing. But it doesn't necessarily mean the first few months. It means when they can talk, but they're still young. You know, when you hear a kid come and has very strong shittos and philosophies and ideologies, political convictions, and you know, wow, somebody is intense in that home. This kid is picking up a lot in the kitchen. And it's by osmosis, it's even without an attempt. But children often are echoing what's going on at home. You just have to be sensitive and hear what is happening. So it's oida abba oida ima. Vuhu machmas shem shutfen by. And it makes sense. It's not just because he's overhearing conversations in the kitchen or in the dining room. It's also, that Noam Elimelech says, it's genetic. It's inherent. The parents are partners in the creation of this child. Between the seed of the father and the egg of the mother. And that one cell that then is developed and replicated. You have the Y chromosome and the X chromosome. There is a partnership here. A partnership obviously on a functional level, but even more important on a genetic level, on a biological level. This is what forms the template of the child in the womb. Fascinating words. And each one imbues into the child, into the fetus, into the female or male, chelkai, their own part, their own portion, according to their essence and according to their state of consciousness, their chemistry. So who I am, what I'm dealing with, this is way before, 200 years before epigenetics and all the studies of genetics. But he's saying everyone imbues into the child, from them, their essence. This is what this child is carrying. So when Rivka sees the struggle in this child, who does she feel she has to look at? She identifies that there is perhaps a deep void or a deep flaw in her. She is the cause. L'chein vatelech lidrosh es Hashem. That's why it doesn't say she went to ask Hashem. She didn't have a question. She went to seek Hashem. L'sakein es chelka kedei sheyiyeh kuloi l'tov l'Hashem. She realized she needs to find God. She has no questions. She needs to find her own relationship with Hashem to repair her own inner wounds so that she should be able to experience a wholeness that this child is challenging. This child is basically reflecting back to her parts inside of her that were not dealt with. The fragmented parts of her own personality, her own tension that is maybe subconscious or superconscious, that may have been suppressed or repressed. This fetus is bringing out to the fore, so it's actually a gift. I need to go find my God. Vatelech lidrosh. I need to go drish. I really need to search. This is the Noam Elimelech's interpretation. So what is he really telling us? He's really telling us something very, very sensitive and very, very important. And it's true about our lives, not just when our children are so small and really pre-birth, but really sometimes it's so relevant and true also at later stages of life. Very often, a parent looks at a child who's struggling, literally struggling emotionally, struggling psychologically, struggling mentally, struggling spiritually, struggling physically. Sometimes it's even more than one child in a family struggling. So there's two ways of dealing with it. One way is we objectify the problem. This kid has a serious problem, and let me find the professionals and the experts who can somehow fix the problem. And sometimes this approach has a lot of merit. We go to doctors, we go to physicians, we try to go to professionals to try to help people heal wounds on any level. But Rivka is actually, the matriarch of the Jewish people, is actually incorporating a new level of wisdom that is much deeper. Sometimes my child is simply mirroring back to me that which I was never ready to see. I was never ready to face. Of course, now I can't point the finger and say, okay, you have a problem. We're going to take you to this doctor. He's going to fix you. Send me the bill, and when you're normal, come back home. In many ways, it's a very easy way of doing it. I'm good. I'm an amazing father. I'm one of the most perfect fathers in existence. My motherhood is not going to be challenged at the moment. I'll tell you how much sacrifice I had. I'll tell you how much commitment. I'll tell you all the people who like me. And I'll tell you how much I'm honored around the people who know me. But somehow our children are not impressed. So it's easy to say, well, you're a problem. This is the case. And we're talking here about a very, very deep emotional experience. What Rivka actually asked herself was, what if my child is mirroring back to me parts of my own identity that are fragmented? Parts of my identity that I never made peace with. An internal tension or lack of complacency or anxiety or wound that I never dealt with. And this is not to blame herself. So now I'm guilty. www.jewishmotherguilt.com la'ad ul'oil me'elamim. So now we have somebody else guilty in the world. Actually, she was very proactive. Vatelech lidrosh es Hashem. She says, you know what? I need to go find my God. What a gift. What is Rivka really saying? My own relationship with Hashem needs healing. My own relationship with myself needs healing. My own relationship with life needs healing. So in many ways, Rivka is teaching us something. I look at a child. The child is going through a lot of things. Instead of just objectifying, go inward and ask yourself the profound question. What am I learning here? What was triggering me so deeply? Why am I so in pain? What is the wound that is being evoked? What is this child teaching me about myself? First of all, this goes to the root of the problem, very often much more than to the symptoms. Second of all, I become an empowered person rather than a passive victim who's suffering at the hands of people I love so much who are torturing me with their strange behavior. It becomes actually empowering because here the person can actually lidrosh es Hashem. I need to go find the wholeness in myself. What is that going to help that kid? He's a rotten kid. He's meshuggah. Okay. I know what I can do. I can heal myself. Here is where the person is empowered. There is agency. There is real freedom here. So that's what Rivka is teaching us here. That's what the Noam Elimelech says. because it's so painful to see her child who has conflict at their core. There is something so deeply conflicted. Rivka understands this is either Yitzchak's story or it's my story, or maybe it's a dynamic of both of us, but she can't even fix Yitzchak. Or maybe she doesn't think it's Yitzchak. She knows Yitzchak too well. He's an Oila Tmima. So she says, Vatelech Lidrashas Hashem. Maybe it's my father's genes. Maybe it's my brother's genes. Vatelech Lidrashas Hashem. Let me go find my God. And as he puts it, if I could cleanse me, if I can find that wholeness in myself, automatically it will be reflected back. Whatever has to happen, the energy that I exude, the energy of the people around me will also be transformed. Yeah. I heard a great metaphor from my wife that life is like a chess game. When two people are playing chess, right? If you're one side, I'm on the other side. I have no right to move your pieces. It's not like in the middle of the game, I don't like where your queen is, so I'm taking your queen. It doesn't work that way. You could never touch the pieces of another person. If you do, you're out. The only pieces I could move is my own. But here's what happens. When I move one of my pieces, you are forced to change your dance. You cannot just say, oh, nothing happened. No. If you don't move, it's checkmate. And that's how life works. Isn't that a beautiful metaphor? Yes. Okay. So it's so true in life. We think, let me move the other person's piece. I'm going to move your pieces. I'm going to move my kid's piece. I'm going to move my husband's pieces, my shviga's pieces, my shvez pieces, my brother, my sister, my neighbor, everybody. I can't move anybody's pieces, sorry. But there's one person's pieces I could move. It's called me. But what happens is when I change my dance, life is a dance. It's a beautiful choreographed dance. When I change my move, when I change my dance, automatically, just like if you're at a wedding and you're dancing with somebody, when I change my posture, my position, the other person who is in that dance responds. We are in a dance with each other. All of humanity and all of the Jewish people, really all of the universe is in a dance with each other. And certainly families are in a dance with each other. And when I start moving my posture, when my position changes, automatically, not by even force, but it creates a new energy in the home. Right? When Tati's posture changes, when Mommy's posture changes, when their inner energy changes, when there's an element, when the ambiance is transformed, when I know inside myself that there's a wholeness, there's a faith, there's a trust, there's a surrender, there's deep love, there's openness, there's a less fear. The person who knows you best, which is your child, because they know your subconscious, their dance starts changing. There are shifts that are very, very real. The words of the Noam Elimelech are so true, not only because the Noam Elimelech said them and therefore they're true, but also I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my own experience. I've seen it with my own children. I've seen it with other people. And probably some of you have seen it very clearly. There was a time in my life where I thought I was a very, very good, very good father. And in some ways, I hope it's a little true, at least in some ways. And then I have seen that my children were acting in certain ways that were very, very painful and aggravating. And for some time or for many years, I thought, okay, let me try to identify the problem and help them with love and understanding and sensitivity. But then, through a lot of inner work, I realized the truth of the words of the Nehemiah. I need to go be able to find my God. I need to be able to go find my own relationship with Hashem. I need to ask myself the questions that maybe I never asked myself. I need to ask myself which parts of me are still fragmented, which parts of me are not worked out, which parts of me maybe I don't even know about because they're buried in a subconscious, and this is actually a gift from Hashem to be able to hold up a mirror, maybe an uncomfortable mirror, to show me things that I wasn't ready to look at. And that is literally what the second Jewish mother, Rivka, teaches us at this moment, in the earliest moments of history. She could have done something else. She could have blamed Yitzchak. She could have blamed the rest of the world. She could have said, God, I have nothing with this. You deal with it. She could have blamed, of course, the child. That would have been an easy target. A sitting duck. And she doesn't blame anybody. She doesn't blame herself. She doesn't blame anybody else. You know what she says? She says it's time to find God. It's time to find what a relationship with Hashem really looks like. What it looks like to surrender the ego, what it looks like to live in flow, what it looks like to emancipate myself from self-consciousness and my egoic mind, what it looks like to be able to go into a place of safety and trust. And this is not just work that I could say with my mouth, and just I do X, Y, Z. We all know that it's really internal avodah, and that's the lidrosh. It's a search. It's a real vulnerable search. It's back to what we spoke about, I think, before Pesach. I told you something I once read or heard. It was an amazing idea, and it's mamish this idea. And it's also connected to Yitzchak and Eisav and so forth. Chazal tell us that the day that Yitzchak wanted to bless Eisav, it was the night of Pesach. It was the night of Pesach, and that's why Yaakov brought him wine, even though he never asked for wine, in order to drink the 4 cups of wine, because the Avos observed the Torah before it was given, even the mitzvahs, the Rabbanan, and that's why Yaakov brought Yitzchak wine. Rashi brings it that Rivka said she'll prepare 2 goats. Yitzchak didn't eat 2 goats. 2 goats is a lot to eat. And the answer is, it represented, one was a carbon Pesach and one was a carbon Chagiga, because she prepared the food Erev Pesach. Now, of course, this is before the exodus of Egypt, so it's not like Pesach like we have, but it means that the energy of Pesach was already in the world and the Avos knew about it. And that's why it became a holiday, because all the holidays in Judaism, it doesn't begin with a story. It begins with an energy that's then manifested in the story. And according to some Svarim, one of the reasons we steal the Afikaiman, right, is because Yaakov Avinu went in and he took the brachas. Like Eisav was supposed to bring the food, and Yaakov Avinu, so to speak, snatched it and received the blessing. It's one of the reasons that says because it happened on Pesach. And there's a big debate about it. Is it justified? Is it not justified? Is it moral? Some communities, some houses, they don't steal the Afikaiman, some they do. But certainly in many houses, it's very, very popular. And one of the hints, one of the remazim here is, we split the matzah, it's called yachatz. And then we put away the bigger piece, we hide it. And then your child finds it. And then your child doesn't want to give it back to you because he stole it. And then he wants a prize or she wants a prize. It used to be when I was a kid that if you were Rockefeller, you got a calculator. If not, you got a bag of chips or a black and white or a bell. You remember those toxic bells that killed you on the spot, but they were delicious? And you got a bell for Afikaiman and you were very happy. If you got a Parker pen, your father, I don't know, was a billionaire. Today, if you give your child a bag of chips or a black and white for the Afikaiman, they'll call child services. It's basically a Lamborghini or a private jet or a private yacht, right? At best a tablet, and then maybe you won't be seen as such a horrible parent. But what's the idea here? And one of the powerful ideas is there's so many things in life that we hide. Yachatz means we break our matzah. And our matzah is fragmented, but the fragmented piece, the bigger one, we actually hide. Most of what's going on is hidden under pillowcases, hidden in closets, hidden under the couch. And here is the rule of life. Whatever we hide, our children are going to find and reveal. And they're going to say, here, Tati, here is your Afikaiman. You want to finish your Seder? Here is the Afikaiman. And now Tati has a choice. He could do one of 2 things. One is look at this child and say, you are a real chutzpin yak. I don't know who raised you, because it was not me. Maybe your mother or somebody else. I did not raise such chutzpah. You should see how I behaved with my father at the Seder. You should see how I behaved in my house. I don't know where you come from. You think you were adopted maybe? Mommy brought you in without telling me? That's one way of the father responding, either consciously or unconsciously, either saying it or thinking it, either thinking it haphazardly and so forth. But certainly there's annoyance. How dare you? This piece of matzah has been in the pillowcase for hundreds of years. We have managed to become the perfect family. How dare you? How dare you? Another father and mother look at this child. They take the Afikaiman and they say, thank you. How can I reward you? Thank you. Because they understand that the only way we could finish the Seder and declare L'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim is if we're ready to bring back that Afikaiman, that fragmented part, back to the table. Let's face it, it's not always easy. If this was hidden for dozens of years or hundreds of years, it's not easy just to reclaim it and say, come back to the table, everything is dandy. But it's the depth of the moment where I'm actually rewarding you, where I'm going to be grateful to you for what you have done. It turns out in life that sometimes the struggles that our children put us through, the ringer that they put you through, at one point, let's face it, parents sometimes have very, very negative emotions about their children. Not because they're bad people, but because of the pain. I remember parents coming to me, it's very hard to repeat, but their child was struggling so deeply and it was so difficult on the family and there was so much shame and grace. The father made the mistake of blurting out at a moment, saying, it would have been much easier if you were dead. And these are deep human emotions that come from very deep suffering. It's like, you're causing me so much dread and anguish. You're destroying everything I built. You know, at least go back to Gan Eden. God will take care of you. I don't know what to do. And it's a very vulnerable place. Not to condone, God forbid, but to appreciate the depth of what people go through. And sometimes they shouldn't be saying that to their child, but they sometimes need a friend or somebody that they can be authentically open with about the struggle. What we're learning here, though, is that these are human emotions and we get them. But the truth is, as we do our work, one day we come back to these children and we say, thank you. How can I reward you for allowing me to be able to see this Afikaiman and completing my Seder and declaring Lashana Haba B'Yerushalayim? How can I thank you for allowing me to go into this place, to these places? Because nobody else could have done it. Let's face it. What children cause you to do, nobody else will cause you to do. Because of the deep relationship, sometimes the deepest emotional, psychological, spiritual work we do because of the struggles or the situations with our children. And those who allow their egos or insecurities to be cracked open and come off their high horse and say, you know what? Maybe I do have the opportunity now to go into a deeper place. Ashreihem, ashreichem. It's really the gift that deserves so much reward. And the matriarch and the prototype and the archetype of this type of attitude is right here. Vatelech lidroish es Hashem. Let me examine my own relationship. What does Hashem tell her? Vayomer Hashem la shnei goyim bebitnech. What does Hashem tell her? Hashem says, Rivka, you're being a little hard on yourself. This kid is actually not conflicted. Shnei goyim bevitnech. Actually, this kid doesn't have a split personality. This kid is not suffering from a spiritual or psychological dichotomy, confused and tortured. There's actually two people. There's two souls and there's two bodies inside your womb. Zeh yifne l'rishoy, v'zeh l'tzitkoi b'shleimus. Your child could receive the Torah. Your child will be able to receive Anochi Hashem Elokecha. True, Anochi Hashem Elokecha needs to be absorbed with an open, pure heart, without any ego, toxicity, and poison. True. But don't worry, you have that. You also have another child in your womb. Shnei Goyim Bevitnik. So the question, Lama ze Anochi? Why am I? Which now we understand. It's a question on her existence. What's happening inside my identity that this kid is playing out? Lama ze Anochi? Why am I? Who am I? What is my existence about? What is happening inside of me? Or even deeper, Lama ze Anochi? How can I receive the Anochi of Aseres Adibris of Matan Torah? It was answered. Shnei Goyim Bevitnech, Rivka. That's the answer. Shnei Goyim Bevitnech, Shnei Le'umim Meyayich Yiparedu, U'loim Eloim Yematz, V'rav Yavet Tzoyer. Now, let's get deeper into what this answer is. This answer comforted Rivka. This answer gave her perspective. Because the truth is that this answer that she heard becomes a tremendous guide in this entire experience of how we deal with that question of Lama ze Anochi. And in order to take this one step deeper, let's go to the next source. And this comes from the Bala Tanya, Tanya Perik Tes. The Tanya that was written by also a student of the Maggid of Mizrich, a colleague of Reb Melech, the Alter Rebbe, the Bala Tanya Rebbe Shnei Zalman of Liadi. Reb Melech passed away Tovkuf Mem Zayin, 1787. The Bala Tanya passed away a few decades later, 1812. The Rebbe Melech passed away Chaf Aleph Adar, Tovkuf Mem Zayin, 1787. The Bala Tanya Chaf Dalet Tevis, Tovkuf Hayin Gimel. And in his magnum opus, the Tanya, he also addresses this conflict. And this is what he says. Achine ksiv ula'oim mila'oim yamatz. Hashem tells Rivka, ula'oim mila'oim yamatz. What does that literally mean? One nation will gain strength from another nation's defeat, which means they're in conflict. Why am I going to gain strength from another one's defeat? Because they want to defeat me. So only by defeating them will I become strong. By them defeating me, will they become strong? Because if they are both strong, if one is strong, the other one will be defeated. So the other one will only gain strength from the other defeat because there's a battle. Ki haguf nikra irktana. In Koheles, Shlomo Melech calls our body, our organism, Ir Ketana, a miniature city. We all have a little city inside of us, right? A tale of two cities, London and Paris. I once did a tape series on Tanya. It was called A Tale of Two Souls. I was once speaking in Philadelphia, and the MC got confused. So he says, I want to introduce the author of A Tale of Two Cities. Now, Charles Dickens has not been around in a couple of years. This was a very secular audience. And it was a few hundred people, I think. And they all turn around. OMG, what is happening, you know? The second coming of Charles Dickens. So when I got up, I said, I'm sorry to disappoint. My name is not Charles Dickens. It's Y.Y. Jacobson. But I do have to say that such a complimentary introduction I never received, and I'm very honored. But I'm not going to talk about two cities, London and Paris. I'm going to talk about one city which has two souls inside of that city. And so it's a tale of two souls in one city. The Guf is an Ir Ktana. And just like a miniature city, all the dynamics of a city exist in our body. A city is not made up of one person. A city has a very complex infrastructure. The truth is, if you want to go deeper, it's not even the Guf. Every cell in the body is an Ir Ktana. We have around 60 trillion cells in our bodies. Every cell is an Ir Ktana. A cell they used to think is not so complex. But if you study even one cell under a microscope, it's a city. It's more than a city, it's a country. It's not an exaggeration to say that the infrastructure of a single cell is more complex and intricately designed than the infrastructure of London and Paris and Moscow and New York and Tel Aviv and Los Angeles and Melbourne. And those are big, complex cities. And that's why the complexity of a single cell, to believe that it happened randomly, is close to absurd, statistically speaking and logically speaking. So the Guf is an Ir Ktana, certainly the whole body, it's a little city. And now you have two leaders, two kings, or two mayors, fighting over one city. Everybody wants to conquer this city. I want this city to be mine. The battle of Stalingrad. Napoleon's battle is against Russia. I want this city or this country to be mine. That's what kings did. That's what some kings do. Ask Mr. Putin. I want Ukraine to be mine. I want to conquer it and rule over it. What does it mean to rule over a city? What does that mean? It's not a status. That means all the subjects, all the people who live in the city are following my directions. They're following my edicts. My decrees is something that will dictate their behavior. That's what it means, I own the city. It's not just a status, you give me a palace and I live there and I'm a king emeritus. It means something very practical. It means that I define the way the city is governed, the way the city behaves, the way all the subjects live in their daily life. That's what it means to be the owner of the company, the owner of the city. Ownership is a very specific term, he says. It's not abstract, it's not status, it's not respect, it's actually control. I actually have the ability to be able to guide the subjects of the city to follow this blueprint, this set of laws, this constitution. Ooh, if that's the case, there are two souls. Ha'elokis, the divine soul, v'hachiyunis habahamis shemehaklipa. And another soul, which is called biological, the biological soul, the animal consciousness coming from klipa, which means a shell. Nilchamais zuim zu al haguf v'cholei varav. They're battling one with another over which city? Over the body and every single limb of the body. Every single limb and organ, tissue and bone, cell of the body is a city. There are two kings battling over it. Each one doesn't want abstract control. They actually want that the subjects of the city, meaning every limb in my body, every cell in my body, should be following, should be channeling the will, the desire, the blueprint, the vision of that particular king. So when Hashem tells Rivka, la'oim yemotz, he's not only talking about two physical fetuses in the womb, obviously that too, but he's also talking about an internal struggle within an identity, even in one child. And even in the mother herself, vis-a-vis herself, in every single person. Two souls battling over one city. One becomes Yaakov, one is called Eisav. As he puts it there, one is Nefesh Alikis, one is Nefesh Achiyunis, and Abahamas. What are we learning here? We're learning here that Rivka was struggling with something very deep, and this is answering her question. So here we go now to the next stage. It's not only her vis-a-vis her child, it's now her vis-a-vis herself. And that is the fact that in a person's life, when we look at a person's life, when we look at our own life, one of the most vexing, challenging, distressful realities. Excuse me for a moment. Excuse me. One of the distressful challenges that I would say many of us have, and probably sensitive people have it with an extra dose, it's on steroids, and that's the fact of an internal conflict or lack of serenity that we so often feel. There are moments that a person, especially people who work on themselves, certainly feel a very deep safety and trust and wholeness and a yearning for real love, to love and to be loved, but in an authentic way, not in a transactional way. The ability to feel an open heart that really overflows with gratitude, with humility, with trust, with connectivity. But everybody knows that even if we merit to have such moments and such experiences, and they feel so real at that moment, they seldomly last forever. An hour passes by, 2 hours pass by, a day passes by, and then suddenly something else completely is triggered. Suddenly I find myself in a space where I don't feel safe, where I feel distressed, where I'm getting angry, where I'm getting resentful, where I'm overwhelmed. Suddenly anxiety overtakes me. I know within myself, sometimes I'm in a situation and I feel like that I'm in flow. I feel like I'm a channel. There's such a sense of gratitude. You don't feel an ego there. You almost feel just grateful to be a channel for Hashem's infinite energy. And then it could be a text message. It could be a phone call. It could be going somewhere. It could be a question somebody asks. And suddenly the whole system is in disarray. And it's almost like, what just happened? How did all of this disappear? Because in those moments, it seems there's so much clarity, there's so much decisiveness. I know who I am. You almost feel like unsinkable, indestructible in a very beautiful way, knowing exactly who you are, what your mission is. And then suddenly there's so much doubt or anxiety. What happened? And many of us reach a conclusion. And what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that our moments of bliss and serenity and trust are just delusional. Maybe it's just chemical, People take something outside, a stimulate. People who drink. They drink and for a few hours they're drunk and they feel better and then you sober up. They say that once in the English Parliament there was a confrontation between Winston Churchill when he was a parliament member and somebody else. Winston Churchill used to like to drink. So one of the parliament members once called him out after his speech and said, "You're a drunk, you're an alcoholic." And he responded, "That may be true, but tomorrow I will sober up. Your problem is that you're stupid. Tomorrow you're going to remain with your stupidity. There's no remedy for it," right? They also say that he was a big guy and he liked his cigars and he knew how to schluff. So somebody was giving a speech in Parliament and it was pretty boring and Churchill fell asleep. And this person was very offended. And she said, "Must you sleep in middle of my presentation?" He says, "No, I mustn't. It's purely voluntary." So, it's almost like, looks like, I had a nice dream and you wake up from your dream, you wake up from reality. So, and that's the question, Lama za anaychi. It's the most beautiful, it's the most accurate words. Lama za anaychi. She's experiencing, it's not just a physical story, there's also a spiritual story here. Vayisroitzatsu. And one day, she's in front of a place where divine revelation is present, and there's so much overwhelming joy and gratitude and connection. But then, she finds herself in a very different space, and she's gravitating to that. Suddenly, there's anger in me. There's so much frustration in me. There's resentment. There's ambivalence. There's doubt. And there's so much anxiety and blame and a need to detach so often and to disassociate. Who am I? Why am I? Who is this person? Lama za anaychi. And for sensitive people, sometimes the struggle goes on for years and years, and they work and they reach places, and then it's like, it gets destroyed afterwards. So I build and build and build, and then the water, you build that castle made of sand, and the wave comes and destroys it. Comes Hashem and tells Rivka, Shnei goyim bevitnech. And this is what the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, is explaining. There's actually two souls. And the idea of two souls is one of the most important truths when it comes to emotional, psychological, and spiritual development. You have to understand Rivka. You don't have one person inside of you. You have two people. You're not made of one part. You may have a mono brain, but you don't have a mono mind. We have one physical brain, but you don't have one mind. You don't have one soul. You don't have one consciousness. Your phone has one battery. A phone doesn't have two batteries. That's why the phone usually doesn't get into a bad mood unless, whatever, too much data. Phones are phones. Your computer has one battery. If we would have had one Duracell battery, they still make Duracell batteries? If you had one battery, that's fine. You don't have one battery. There's at least two parts, and usually multiple parts, because every part has it's like a city. A city is not run by one person. It doesn't work that way. A city has a whole complex infrastructure. And one of the most powerful truths about a city is there are conflicting agendas. This person has this agenda, this person has this agenda, this person cancels what the other person does. You know what a city looks like? Go to the Israeli Knesset and you see what a little country, how it's ran. And there's hollering and bickering and debates and screaming. It's a city. Imagine in your kitchen, you're trying to cook up and make something, but then there's another 100 voices that have different opinions. We know what that looks like. It's called backseat drivers. Shnei goyim. And who are these two goyim? Two of these two nations. So he calls it the nefesh halakis, the nefesh hachiyunes habahamis shemi haklipa. And they're really in a battle. Now what does this mean? What does this battle look like? How does this comfort Rivka? How does this answer a question of lama za'anaychi? And the answer is because you have to understand the nature of these two souls. The moment you understand the nature of these two souls, there is a clarity, and you don't have to ask the question, lama za'anaychi. Not that there's no struggle, but you look at the struggle in a different way. And here is how it is. How do we explain the nefesh habahamis versus the nefesh halikis? And this is one of the major themes of Tanya. And that is as follows, that we operate on two levels of consciousness. Hindi, you with me? You agree? Yes. Okay. If not, you'll speak up. We operate on two levels of consciousness. At least. Every one of those, has sub branches. And it's literally two kings. Imagine two kings inside of me. Literally. We spoke about a chess game. That chess game is in my heart. There's two kings, two leaders. Each king has a vision, a way of looking at this country. Imagine literally inside of you there's a city. Call it any city you want. Yerushalayim, Tel Aviv, Eilat, Sydney. Where were you last? Hong Kong, Peru, Brazil, Mumbai, Afghanistan? No, not yet. Okay. Yes. It's perfect.
But it's essentially exactly like the story of Jekyll and Hyde. Everyone knows what that is.
Jekyll and Hyde, yes.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because he tried to split that.
Right.
That there are two parts.
Right.
But you can't split it.
Right.
You need both. You split it, makes problems.
Excellent. Right. And that's where resolution happens. Excellent. Thank you. So these two levels of consciousness, one is called nefesh habahamis, one is nefesh halikis. Let's begin with the basic one called the animal consciousness. And the word is beautiful, nefesh habahamis. It's an animal consciousness. Every animal has it. So if you want to understand it, study your animals. Go out, get yourself some hens, get yourself some sheep, get yourself some goats, which are good to regulate the system anyway. If you need a horse, if you need a cow, study them for a few weeks and months. And you're going to learn about your own internal survival skills and mechanisms to keep you safe. It's the brilliance of the nefesh habahamis that Hashem put into literally every animal consciousness that has three agendas. Agenda number one is, I'm going to do anything to survive. Agenda number two, I need to propagate my genes. I need to create another generation. And agenda number three, I'm going to try to create an environment around me that allows for the first two to happen.
We respond to the amygdala
The amygdala is the first part of the brain that is developed, the stem, right? That is essentially responsible for survival. It also alerts us to every danger. This every Nefesh HaBahamis has. It's one of the most important things. I have a few hens in my backyard. If you came to my son's l'chaim, you see he was saying a maimon, a bunch of hens that were listening as very deeply, very attentively. So I sometimes watch them. It's very regulating for my anxiety. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. People don't understand the brilliance that Hashem put into these genes. There are hawks that fly over. And their eyes, you think they're looking this way, they always have an eye looking up to heaven. And when the hawk gets close, one of them utters a sound. And within seconds, all of them go for cover. And it's fascinating how they call to each other and how they identify things. When there's a wind and you see, I'm like, wow. We don't realize the sophistication of the Nefesh HaBahamis. It has a responsibility. I need to survive. And I need to help my young survive. That's internal. This is every reptile, every worm, every fish, every bird, every mammal, every animal, including the animal inside of us called the Nefesh HaBahamis. It's also called Nefesh HaChiyunis because it's literally responsible for the biological, brilliant makeup of the human body. The biology of a person is so brilliant. Who is responsible for it? Ki Nefesh HaBasar B'dami, the Nefesh HaChiyunis that Hashem put into every single body, and it's a king. It has a vision. The vision is survival, 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 and if it could be comfortable, even better. Survival with comfort, that is my vision. And that is how I function, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, my child pointed out something incredible that I have to share with you. Okay? My next door neighbor across the street, I don't know if she's here today, has 2 wonderful white puppies. And the white puppies don't get along, dogs don't get along with chickens. Now, usually these puppies are in their home or in their yard, but one of them ran away. So it came into our courtyard and began chasing our hens. The hens went crazy. The puppies were chasing them. She attacked one of them, plucked feathers, but the chickens, Baruch Hashem, got away from the dog. Okay? And then the young came, she took back the dog, all is well. That ends well until a few weeks later when a fox came and killed 3 of my chickens. Thank you for your sympathies and condolences. I'll pass them on to my son. It actually was emotional. You saw the fox, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay. But I want to say something interesting. I didn't realize the chickens were walking around and grazing a whole day. And then I saw that for like a week they weren't. They were under the shed. And my son told me, you realize that since when the dog came, they realized it's not safe here. So therefore they're not going to come out. And it literally took a few weeks until we can bring them back to their old location. And I'm always preparing a class in my mind. So as my son told this to me, I'm like, wow, that's exactly how it works. If I learned at a certain age in my life that this place was a place where I got attacked, whatever that meant in my life, I'm not coming back. If I have to stay under a shed for the rest of my life, so be it. Survival is the most important thing. They just reflected it. Unlike chickens, we have memories that go very, very long time. And unlike chickens, it's hard for us to gain back trust. And unlike chickens, we start creating a philosophy around why the dog came. The chicken just knows, dog, not good. You could show me it's good, we're back. But our Nefesh HaBahamis is human. So it's brilliant. The dog attacked me because I don't deserve to be here, because I'm a loser, because I'm a betrayal, because God hates me, because God punishes me, because the world is here to destroy me, because of this, because of that. I got to stay under the shed. Over there, there's safety. And sometimes 40 years later, I'm still under the shed, peeking out for a few minutes, running back. That's exactly the templates that the Nefesh HaBahamis develops around its need to survive. And we can't blame it. We need to appreciate how it works. What is it all based on? The Tanya uses one word, Nefesh HaBahamis. It comes from a reality called klipa. That's a very interesting word. What does the word klipa mean? A husk. What does he mean it comes from a place of klipa? It means something is blocked. There is a shell that's blocking. What is blocking the Nefesh HaBahamis? Nefesh HaBahamis is under the impression that it is not every moment in the womb of Hashem. The Nefesh HaBahamis has one paradigm at the core of its identity, and that is, I am alone. I am alone. That is why I need to survive. And the only one who can make sure I survive is me. And therefore it develops an ego. The ego that it develops is not evil. The ego that it develops is the template of how I'm going to survive. And at the youngest of ages, already in the womb of my mother, we identify what is safe, what is not safe, what is threatening, what is not threatening. Where are the dogs? Where are the foxes? Maybe if I remain emotional and loving and open-hearted, but it's not being reciprocated by people in my life who can't give it back to me, I may say, wow, it's danger to ask for love. It's dangerous. You know why? The response is muted silence, which hurts me so badly. Probably I'm not deserving of it. Probably it's a stupid need. Let me never again express my need for connection. Because if I do express my need for connection, I may get back a silent, muted response from a disassociated person. I blame myself. That becomes my template. Some of us shut down our emotions very early on. We learn how to function. We sometimes learn how to please people in order to get the approval that we need. So I become a people's pleaser, and it's amazing for survival. Because for survival, I need people around me to like me. I want to feel good about myself. I want people to do me favors. Maybe I learn I have to be manipulative. Maybe I learn I have to be dishonest. Maybe I learn I have to be deceptive. Maybe I learn I always need a smile. I always need a smile, even if inside I'm tortured. Maybe I learn I can't be authentic. Whatever my template is, the Tanya says in chapter 1, the animal soul, like everything, is made up of 4 qualities: fire, water, air, and earth. Each one it cultivates in order to survive. For it, fire could mean arrogance, anger, resentment, frustration. Water becomes addiction and cravings. Air becomes haughtiness, idle talk, boasting about myself, needing everybody's validation. Earth becomes laziness, depression, despondency. These are all coping mechanisms. Laziness is a great coping mechanism. If I'm lazy, then I'm not ambitious, there won't be any disappointment, whatever it is. If I'm sick, if I'm depressed, I have a good excuse not to do anything, not to fail. There is a voice here. So we blame the animal soul a lot, but the truth is, it's the poor hen that went into hiding and develops its aggression or its disconnect. It's fight, flight, fawn, freeze, whatever its responses are, based on a klipa. What's the klipa? The klipa is it does not know its inherent divine worth. Because the animal consciousness is developed in a world where the divine oneness is concealed. But we also have, so you get the animal consciousness? People relate to this? Yeah. This is a king. You have to understand, it's not a small little animal. It's not a little chicken. This soul is a king. It's a king in our body. It has a vision. It wakes up in the morning and it actually doesn't go to sleep. The animal soul doesn't go to sleep, if you realize. And it has a vision how it's going to keep me safe. It has a vision how it wants me to respond. I pick up my hand every time I open my mouth. Thoughts, instincts, emotions. If I'm feeling blah, if I'm feeling depressed, if I'm feeling anxiety, the animal soul is telling me how to behave. It tells me how to control my limbs. It's a king. It has a vision how you live. It tells me what to eat, when to eat, how to eat. My animal soul tells me to eat always. I'm working on it. It's subconscious and conscious. Some parts are conscious, some parts are subconscious. Usually its most intense parts that it knows you can't deal with, it keeps in the subconscious. So it's like a king that issues forth decrees by email, but you don't see it. You understand? The brain gets an email and the limbs respond. But we know it. Sometimes it's in the body. Somebody said it's not my psychology that's blocking me, it's my biology. Sometimes it's in the body. That hen knows in its body that this garden is unsafe. There are dogs and there are foxes. Sometimes, you come into a place, somebody says something to you and you could feel your body changes. And people blame themselves. No, your body has a memory. Your body has a message that is encoded, embedded in it, and it's responding. It's responding. It's actually something to look at. What just happened to my body? Why did I become uptight? Right? Why am I sitting like this? I give a lot of classes and lectures. There's people, so I know how people sit. Some people sit like this. For an hour, they will not move this. It takes me 45 minutes of humor to finally get them to go like this. What is this? This is like, Mrs. Fisher, you could do it. It's fine. You're comfortable. Don't change your posture. Right? Protection. Rabbi, why you're not getting to me? You are not getting to my heart. This heart has been sealed long ago. And don't think with your gift of gab you're going to penetrate. This is where we stay. Yeah, I'm telling you, it takes sometimes, with men it's a little harder. It takes sometimes 45 minutes till the guy finally is like this. And then I shoot right away. I don't wait. I go right into the chest. And the poor guy is like, I know it. I knew he's a monster. But it's true. It's the words that come out of our mouth. It's the texts I send. It's the way I respond with words. It's the thoughts that take over. It's the actions and, of course, the behaviors. The animal consciousness has a vision. It's a king. And the king is micromanaging. This is not a king who delegates. Yeah, he also delegates to all of the different parts of the body. But it's in charge of everything. It takes its job very seriously. And sometimes it tells you, don't mess with me. I kept you safe. Especially people who went through seriously difficult situations. Who kept them safe? The animal consciousness said, never talk in your house. When your father comes home, don't say a word. There was somebody who was telling me that their father suffers from a lot of rage. Good person, but suffers from a lot of rage. And their mother has her own challenges. And as a child, this person learned how do they manage their parents in a way that will keep the house as stable and quiet every night. So imagine a 5-year-old is coming home, and what they have to figure out, the king inside of them is, you want to be safe in this house. What do you have to do? So this person knew the house has to be clean when Tati comes home. This person has to know that everything has to be perfect. Everyone has to behave. And this person till today behaves in the most perfect way, still in order to make sure that Tati is not going to explode in rage. Do you understand the pressure and the torment? Now, why is Tati so much in rage? I don't know. We have to ask him, and he may not know. We got to go to his father Nefesh HaBahamis or his mother's Nefesh HaBahamis. I don't know. Or maybe other things, It becomes, and it's never about judgment as much as it is awareness and understanding of what are these templates that my animal soul has developed already early on. And sometimes I have a very nice Nefesh HaBahamis. Some puppies are very cute. Not all animals are aggressive, undomesticated. Not every lioness is going to attack you. Sometimes they're cubs. They're cute. You have chimpanzees that are dangerous, and you have chimpanzees that can be friendly. I would be careful, though. You have animals when they're small, right? Little cubs, and then you have the animals when they grow big and get out of their way. Put them in the jungle. It's true with our Nefesh HaBahamis. Sometimes our Nefesh HaBahamises are very sweet. It's also a template. Somebody told me the other day that their whole life they decided they're going to be a tzaddik. And today they realize that they're actually tortured. Like almost like, I'm going to be a tzaddik that everybody's going to like me. So it's like a really beautiful Nefesh HaBahamis. But it's all for me in order to be able to be accepted and validated. And it's a deep, deep pain. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way we develop ourselves in a world that could be very difficult. We also have a Nefesh Elikis. The Nefesh Elikis, you have to understand what this means. We have a Nefesh Elikis. It's not a small statement. Nefesh Elikis is actually a consciousness that channels through it the infinite intelligence and love of the Creator. The Nefesh Elikis is not focused on survival, not because it doesn't want to survive, but because it's as alive as God is. Hashem is not focused on survival, not because he wants to disappear, but because he is the source of life. The Nefesh Elikis is literally a piece of Hashem. What does it mean, a piece of Hashem? It's like the ray of the sun. It channels through it into our body and around us the intelligence of the universe, which is Hashem. It channels the love of the universe. It channels cosmic oneness. It has a clarity about life that is basically Hashem's perspective, Hashem's vision. And that exists inside of us. Also, it's also a king. It also has a vision. In a completely unified personality, the Nefesh HaBahamis looks at the Nefesh Elikis, V'rav Yavoid Tzayer, and says, wow, you lead the way, I'm here to follow. The Nefesh HaBahamis tells the Nefesh Elikis, I'll tell you when we have to go to the bathroom. I'll tell you when I'm thirsty. I'll tell you when I need a sweater because it's cold. I'll tell you when I need to take off my sweater because it's hot. I'll tell you when I'm hungry because it's time for lunch. And I'll tell you when I really need a rest, or I need a walk, or I need relaxation, or I need some exercise. And the Nefesh Elokis says, amazing. And that's like literally a puppy in the house who's very safe, who loves the environment, and the puppy waits for mommy and tati to guide the way. So a healthy Nefesh HaBahamis is actually a beautiful facilitator for the Nefesh Elokis in our body. Because any bodily need, you need your Nefesh HaBahamis. Like you said, you can't split. Without a Nefesh HaBahamis, I can't be physically alive. I can be spiritually alive, but not physically alive. The Nefesh HaBahamis moderates my temperature. It manages my respiratory system. It manages my urinary system. It manages my circulatory system. It manages my digestive system. You want to finish the other systems? The doctor. It manages, you can't live without that. If I don't eat for 6 days, I can't live. I need water. The Nefesh HaBahamis says you need water. The Nefesh Elokis is not in a separate planet. They live together. They're married to each other. They're actually tucked into each other. The Nefesh Elokis works through the Nefesh HaBahamis, but the Nefesh Elokis is never ever looking for validation from anybody. The Nefesh Elokis doesn't need confidence from people who think that they're going to tell me they like me and now I'm going to feel like. The Nefesh Elokis has a safety essentially. Because imagine you're experiencing Hashem. It's like you are Hashem. You are a manifestation of Hashem's light. So you're inherently valuable. You're infinitely valuable. And there's a love that's infinite. There's a wisdom that's infinite. And that's the Nefesh Elokis. So in a beautiful situation, the two make complete peace. And one actually is a channel for the other. So there's like a hierarchy in life. There's Hashem. There's the divine soul, which is Hashem inside of me. There's the animal soul, which channels the divine soul into the body. So you have Hashem, you have a divine soul, you have an animal soul, and you have a guf. And there's peace, and there's oneness.
Is it connected to the prefrontal cortex?
Of course it's connected. The Nefesh HaBahamis has 3 names in Tanya. Nefesh HaChiyunis, Nefesh HaBahamis, Nefesh HaSichlis. You understand? Nefesh HaChiyunis is the amygdala. Nefesh HaBahamis is the limbic system, which is emotional, like animals. There's the reptilian brain, right? And there's the, what is it called? The mammalian brain, the limbic, the limbic element, that's emotional. There's the lizard inside of you, or the crocodile, I don't know which one you like more. That's the reptilian brain. There's no emotions there, but there is survival. Don't start up with that alligator. He's not going to give you love. But there's a lot of survival instincts. I once went Chalamoid with one of my boys to visit an alligator zoo. Okay, it was interesting. There was this huge alligator. You know, these alligators, I don't know. It looked like 12, it was huge. And it was in, you know how they sit in one place for like forever, right? Forever. They're there like since Matan Torah. Anyway, this alligator is there, it's huge. But I see its eye is staring at something and it blinks once in a while. So I asked the guy, what is this alligator doing? And he says, around a mile from here, there's a female. And he's trying to get her attention and get her excited about him. And I'm like, OMG, this was incredible. And he's Parsha wooing her. He's like, can we go on a date? I need a shidduch. I need to propagate. This is lonely here. And I'm like, wow, you know, these guys are more interesting than anybody imagines. So there's Nefesh HaChiyunis, which has also a lot of intelligence. So there's Nefesh HaBahamis, that's where there's a lot of emotions, right? That's the monkey inside of me, the chimpanzee, the elephant, right? The dog, there's a lot of emotions. And then there is the prefrontal cortex. That is the intelligent part. Here, there is vision, there is long-term analysis. There is delaying gratification for something that's going to come in a year, but it's worth it. That's prefrontal cortex. When we are in our amygdala, the prefrontal shuts down because you have to mobilize all of your resources to get away from danger. Right? If somebody sees a lion suddenly, they don't start meditating and thinking. Their body goes in immediately to an alert state, and it redirects the blood circulation into those muscles and parts that are going to help you, for example, escape. It makes you survive. When you're in a relaxed, safe space, now your prefrontal can open up. That's why it's so important. Some people's Nefesh HaBahamis is, right? What we call today developmental trauma means that the Nefesh HaBahamis went into a freeze state because it's under danger and it can't use its prefrontal. So now relationships, for example, can be dangerous. It needs to shut down everything. It freezes. It goes into this place. And sometimes people suffer from it. They don't even realize they're suffering from it. Because part of the Nefesh HaBahamis' trick is to tell you that this is normal. Because that's its job. It's trying to keep you safe and comfortable. So what it does is it tells you that this state is the normal state. But we have a divine soul that has a clarity that is otherworldly. And that's where the person is literally channeling the cosmic intelligence, the cosmic love. Think that there's something inside of you that's actually channeling Hashem every single moment. Over there, that nefesh can't get abused. Not because there's no abusers, but because it's like Hashem. It's inextinguishable. Its core is wholesome, it's divine. It's a king, it has a vision. So these two souls are in my city. So in a complete ideal situation, they're integrated. There's a hierarchy. Hashem, your divine soul, your animal soul, your body. Rivka is experiencing struggle. She's experiencing struggle. Lama za'anaychi, who am I? So he says, Shnei goyim, there's two souls. What is Hashem really telling her? He's telling her something incredible. He's telling her two things. Number one, never ever delegitimize your divine experiences. Just because an hour later, I'm angry, I'm anxious, it doesn't mean an hour ago you were lying. You weren't lying. Your animal soul has now come to the fore and it's very anxious. But you also have a divine soul. So maybe an hour ago or yesterday, your divine soul was actually flexing its muscles. You were feeling it. Of course you were open. Of course you were open-hearted. Of course you had clarity. Of course you were feeling humility and gratitude. Of course you were in a state of surrender, love, trust, and bliss. But now your animal soul, which was in the middle of taking a nap, woke up. It's like, oh my God, this person is dangerous, you're crazy. Shut down, out. Okay, it doesn't mean you're a liar. It means you have two parts. This part just woke up and this part has a lot of anxiety. You don't have complete integration. Number one. Number two, it means something else. Don't get frustrated and resentful and angry at yourself that you can experience some of the craziest types of emotions, because it doesn't mean you're bad. It just means you have an animal soul that has a vision of how your body should function. So two things it tells us. Don't delegitimize your divinity and authenticity. And also, don't start hating yourself and killing yourself for the fact that you have other types of emotions. With this, Rivka could make peace with herself. Because so often we blame ourselves. If I was a real person, if I was an authentic person, if I had a blissful marriage, why am I feeling this way? No. Marriages have moments that are blissful, hopefully. Hopefully, right? And then they have moments where a woman or a husband could wake up and really feel very negative emotions. Something just came up for the animal soul. The animal soul is saying, I'm scared, I'm afraid. Maybe there's a memory that I didn't deal with. Maybe there's forgiveness that has to be given. Maybe there's something that triggered an old experience. Maybe there's something that's frightening me at my core. And my animal soul just said, fight, flight, get into an argument, shut down, gaslight, drift away, stonewall, everybody's responses. The poor animal soul is frightened. It feels that the foxes and the dogs are everywhere. Run for your life and go back under the shed and never come out. Of course, don't get close to your spouse. That will be dangerous. You stay under the shed. That's what the animal soul does. Don't kill yourself and don't say, okay, my marriage is bad, my relationships are horrible. No, the animal soul needs a little guidance now. You know what it needs? It's tantruming. You know what we did with our chickens? We picked them up and we hugged them. Sometimes you take your animal, don't get too emotional on me. Sometimes you got to take your animal soul and you have to hug it. It's like a kid tantruming. Your kid has a splinter or fell. Kol hatzola, kol hatzola, kol hatzola. What do they need is a hug and a little ice cream. Vanilla and chocolate if possible. Soft. Milchex, not parav chas v'shalom. That's not going to help your animal soul. That's maybe good for your divine soul and for Sheva Brachas. It's not for an animal soul. Yeah. The animal soul is tantruming. Hug it, say you're right. Mommy is in the room. Tati is in the room. You're going to be right. I know you're scared. I know you're scared. I know part of you wants to disassociate. Your teenage child just told you something. You got so triggered. You got so overwhelmed. Your spouse just brought out something that you have to work on. You want to attack. What about you? What about you? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, give it a little love, give it a little compassion, and then ask a question. Which king do you think should have control over the city? When the words are coming out of my mouth, which words will bring me to my ultimate goal, to my ultimate desires? When the thoughts are taking over my brain, I know some thoughts I can't control. When I have to choose, which thoughts am I going to go with? Which thoughts am I going to allow to fester? Do I want my animal soul's fears and insecurities, or my divine soul's infinite wisdom and clarity? Everybody knows deep down what the answer is. So then I look at the animal soul and I give it leadership. It needs a mentor in the room. It needs somebody to hold space. It needs a good facilitator who's not scared of its violent emotions, and sometimes even what seems like psychotic breakdowns and fears and dichotomies. Hashem tells Rivka, you can manage this. It's not lamazan. Number one, your godliness is not false. Your moments of bliss are real. They're authentic. You have a divine soul. It was never obliterated. Number two, don't blame yourself when the other side comes up. You may be sitting at a shiur. You may be davening. You may be learning. You may be taking a walk. You may have a very special moment in your life. You feel intimacy with yourself, with Hashem, with others. You think it's going to last forever. You know, you go on vacation, sometimes you're in front of this most beautiful place. It's going to last forever. And then we get surprised and we start hurting ourselves and blaming ourselves for opposite responses. No, Hashem just took you now and gave you an opportunity to help your animal soul. We're married to each other. We can't block out one. They ultimately have to deal with each other. The whole story of the next Parsha is that Yaakov and Eisav can't completely separate. They can't. The animal soul and divine soul, as Hindi said, are integrated. They're not just married in the same home. They're married in the same body. One is literally enclosed in the other. So here we now understand the deeper element. After the Noam Elimelech speaks about the children, it's also true about ourselves. This question of Lama Za'anaychi and Hashem's response. So now let's finally, and with this we conclude, read our last source here. And this is what we're going to conclude with. Tanya Perik Chavches. You can go, it's fine, don't worry. You can go whenever you want. Tanya Perik Chavches, chapter 28. Okay. Here is the conclusion of what Rivka learns at that moment. Take a look. V'noida derech hanilchamim v'cheina ne'evokim yachad. It's knowing how those who wrestle function. People who wrestle with each other, what happens? K'she'echad mizgaber, as ha'asheni misamet lizgaber gam ken b'chol ma'amatzei koichai. When two people are wrestling, or they're having, let's say, a hand wrestle, an arm wrestle, or another form of combat, Krav Maga, whatever it is, and one of them manages to almost defeat the other. Right? If somebody's having an arm wrestle and my hand is almost down completely, what does the other person do? They will muster their last energy to fight back. Before that, they may have been calm. You know, in the beginning, I think, I don't know if I'm going to lose, but suddenly, when I realize the other person is overpowering me, I'm going to muster my last energy, hoping to fight back. Now I know I can't be calm, I can't be placid. If I'm going to be calm and placid, I'm out. So now I need to really find every iota of energy to fight back. So the Baal Tanya says, this is true in every battle. You think in yourself it's not true. So when the divine soul really strengthens itself, and now it's in a state of davening, meaning it allows itself to surrender. It allows itself to go into a place of safety and trust. It allows itself to experience itself as a channel for Hashem's bliss and love. And it's an incredible moment. What do you think is going to happen at this moment? The animal consciousness is going to often go crazy. Because if in its mindset, what you're doing is dangerous, you're opening up, you're really relaxing, no more anxiety, the animal still says, are you crazy? I gave you anxiety for 53 years for you to survive. Okay, your anxiety is what's keeping you normal. If you wouldn't be anxious, you would say whatever you want to say, and the whole world would say you're a certified Meshiggana. Because of my social anxiety, you are hypervigilant. When you walk into a bar mitzvah and a sheva brachas, you think 1,000 times before you open your mouth. Anybody relates to this animal soul? Now you're going to come and be smarter than me. I'm the security guard. I'm the one who protected you from every attacker. The animal soul can often go crazy. And that's what often happens. People open up, they crack open. It's a moment of deep safety, and then there's going to be a thought. 1 second. Oh my God, there's no supper tonight. The cleaning lady didn't come. Oh my God, I had an appointment I forgot. It finds things even from 10 years ago. The main thing is go into anxiety. Go into anxiety, go into anxiety. And he says sometimes the more the Nefesh Elokis is successful, the more it's going to bring up whatever it can to fight back because you're successful. So it's going to bring in any machshava zara, any alien thought to bring you down. V'loi ketos ha'olam. Don't make the mistake of the world. Shetayim lo yichiach min nefilas ha'machshava zara miklal she'ein tfilasam klum. Most of the world, if I'm davening, and suddenly I have this crazy alien thought that comes into me, what do I prove to myself? I'm inauthentic. My davening was worthless. If I was really present, if I was really intimate, why did I get all these thoughts? Obviously, it was a joke. I was deluding myself. I'm a liar. I'm a deceptive person to myself. Says the Tanya, ha'emes haya k'divreihem. Priceless words. Truth would have been on their side, that your davening is inauthentic. If you had one soul that was both davening and experiencing the alien thoughts, you could say, wow, my soul is really a psatzka. It's really split. It's really dichotomized. It doesn't know who it is. There's one soul. 1 minute I'm with God, and the next minute I'm in the opposite space. What's wrong with me? It's two souls. Understand, there's two people in you. There's two personalities. They have a completely different persona. You have to understand that. You're not dealing with one person. You're not dealing with one mind. You're dealing with mana minds, multiple minds. Each one has its own way of looking at the world. Each one developed in its own way to do its job, what it thinks you need to survive. And they're battling in your brain. Each one, like a king, wants to be the sole exclusive one who calls the shots and wants the brain to actually be filled with its energy. So they have a little piece of real estate. You know how big it is? Your brain. A couple of inches, 2 pounds, 3 pounds. But that piece of real estate is precious because that brain is plugged into divinity, to infinity. So this little piece of real estate, it's like real estate in the Middle East. You know what I mean? In Kentucky, in Wyoming, in Montana. Send them to Montana, for heaven's sake, to Kentucky. There's a lot of place there. No. In the Middle East, 1 inch, world war. 1 inch, world war. Eretz Yisrael. It's the center of holiness. That little brain, whoa, it is creating a battle. Everybody wants, I want this brain. V'chol hirurei Torah v'Yerushalayim min nefesh elokis. V'chol milah da'alma min nefesh habahamis rak she'elokis milubeshes ba. All thoughts that reflect basically Torah and Yerushalayim, that's your divine soul speaking. There are all thoughts that are coming from a world that's fragmented and divorced from the oneness of Hashem. That's your animal soul. But the Elokis is milubeshes ba. They're not divorced. The divine soul is tucked into it. It's enclosed in it. Because anything connected to the body is the animal soul. So the divine soul works through the animal soul. So what the Tanya is saying, don't think that you're being inauthentic and you're being deceptive. Why? Because I was in this state of wholeness and clarity. And then 10 minutes later, or 5 minutes later, or 20 seconds later, there's a whole different experience in me. Breathe and realize. Calling yourself a liar or confused or split was true if you had one soul. You had one piece and that piece was completely crazy. It's not. Different parts, different souls. The divine soul has exact clarity and it's going to be real and it's going to come out and it's going to be incredible. And then an hour later, the animal soul may wake up, or 5 minutes later, or when it sees the success of the divine soul and it's feeling threatened for whatever reason, It's going to try to say, oh, we know the truth, you're just a depressed loser. Oh, we know the truth, you're feeling blah. Oh, we know the truth, you're irresponsible, you're lazy again. Oh, suddenly you're davening. Oh, you're blissful. Yeah, you're blissful. What happened an hour ago? Look at the text you just got. This person is angry at you. Oh, and you know how Ashlam Mazio, you missed your plane 2 days ago, and B'chlal, you don't get it together. And your kid just like sent, I need the credit card is not working, so I can't even get the credit card. Whatever it is, boom, 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 boom. Ho! And this is what you have to understand. Of course, there's a tzaddik who creates complete integration, but most of us, as the Tanya explains, there are these two souls. We work with our animal soul, we elevate it, we sublimate it, but it's still an animal consciousness. And therefore, it's going to come up. And when it starts telling me, oh, I don't know, I can't be connected, I don't know how to be connected, it's all a lie, that's part of animal fear. It's a lie. No. You have a divine soul, and when you go into that space, your nervous system is safe. It's wholesome. And then the animal soul throws a tantrum, and it needs my attention, it needs my presence, it needs the adult, the mentor in the room to say, yes, you're dealing with a lot of fear, or you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, there's a lack of clarity, the world is falling apart. You say that you're cursed, this one is cursed, that one is cursed, my life is cursed, my day is cursed, this is going to happen, that's going to... I get it. These are the fears that the animal soul develops to stay safe, small, and in control. I used to have a meshugas that I would constantly imagine when the telephone was ringing, that it was somebody telling me that a certain person died. And then I realized, wow, my animal soul is just preparing. It doesn't want to be caught off guard. It does not want to be caught off guard, right? When you're in trauma, the worst thing is to be caught off guard. You need to be in control. You need to be vigilant. So if I can imagine the worst thing in that telephone call, you're not going to be able to shock me. I already knew it. This is a classic. I'm just giving you a classic survival template of the animal soul. There's so many. It's these premonitions. It's these predictions. Everything is going to fail. Let's go right into the spear. Nobody will ever disappoint me. If everybody's always going to say no to me, you will not disappoint me. Just say no. Self-fulfilling prophecy. It's not even the details. The details don't matter so much. Sometimes they do matter. It's most importantly how it's constantly setting you up to be able to live in tension and to be able to live in survival mode where I'm small, safe, and in control. I certainly can't channel the prophet inside of me, which channels the infinite cosmic love and intelligence. So when Rivka can hear that about her own children and about the future, this told her, Lama za anaychi? This is anaychi. The whole point of Anoichi Hashem Elokecha is to be able to bring the light of Hashem into the animal soul, to be able to work with the animal soul and elevate it. That is the point of Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, because if you look at the Aseres HaDibros, 5 of them are very holy and sacred. They deal with us and Hashem. The last 5 deal with some very, very base human instincts and sometimes vulgar things. Theft and adultery and murder and leisachmet, etc. It's a lying. This is exactly what Anoichi. Anoichi means the ability to be able to introduce the truth of Anoichi into the body, into the animal soul. This is your avodah. Don't get scared of it. My little dog or my little hen tantruming, yes, that's your avodah. You're an adult. You're a mentor. Your divine soul has the ability to come as a king into this place and tell the animal soul, let me take over the thoughts, the words, and the actions. And with this we conclude, as the Tanya says, I can't always master the inner emotions. My animal soul will have reactions. Not everybody can have an animal soul that's completely cleared up, but I can always be in charge on the thoughts, the active thoughts, words, and behaviors. And then every day we elevate a little bit more and more of our inherently beautiful, but sometimes anxious animal consciousness.